Great, so thank you. So first, I'm Frederick, and we're here to witness the future. So let's start with a quick video. Is it possible to play the video? Oh, hit click again, cool. Okay, so Testify security. So the question is your software supply chain protected? So in today's environment, the attacks can be highly disruptive, very damaging to your software lifecycle. And since attacks can occur at nearly every link in your chain, being properly protected means anticipating potential threats to ensure that those attacks do not find you unprepared. So last year, there were approximately 245,000 malicious packages discovered and 2.1 billion vulnerable Java components consumed. So protecting your software supply chain is not a one-step process. So you think of it like baking a cake. It takes a lot of time, a lot of ingredients, and your software lifecycle must also be observed every step of the way as well. So was the process followed? Were there standards verified? So we built Judge. Judge acts as a thing to observe, manage, and act. We observe the steps of your software supply chain. We implement security controls and checks at crucial points in your development. And we then help mitigate those threats and ensure the ongoing integrity of your software artifacts. So with all the environment variables that go into baking a cake, you can't always tell how strictly the process was followed. The same is true in the software development world. So trust is good, but verification is better. So what we do is we bake the telemetry and we capture that telemetry and we test it, we observe it, and we help surface that information so that you can build your software and make sure that you're developing in a secure way. So how do we do this? Well, let's start with an origin story because the origin of this matters. Like why does this matter? So there was a soldier. He had to leave his family over Christmas holiday in order to deploy some software. And when he arrived, it turns out that the development practices of the software that it was built did not meet the compliance requirements of the place where it was going to be deployed. So the software was not deployed. This particular soldier did not spend time with his family, and simultaneously the mission was also hampered in that particular process. So this person was our co-founder Cole, and so part of the story is how do we make sure that what we're building as software engineers meet the compliance requirements of the places that need to deploy, and how do we start up that conversation? Because it's not just like, oh, let's go read the requirements and let's go deploy. It should be a conversation between the places we're trying to deploy, what is necessary, and through that conversation, like the technology is important, but it's really about the people. It's really about bringing those people together in an effective way and making sure that things are done properly. So how do we do this? We start with cryptographic attestations. We observe, we cryptographically attest various claims. That those claims are then enforced by a policy. So the policy consumes those cryptographic attestations. We automate the whole process. So the process of collecting, the process of writing the policies, the process of enforcing those policies. And so part of the reason that we're here as well, so first, thank you for DHS, is that we looked at the places that DHS and government are trying to deploy to, and we found there was a good partnership here. And part of the path is that for us is that we're trying to understand like how does the government work. We're trying to get this we're trying to get this particular conversation going, and we have to take a look at our own set of processes. And DHS has been instrumental in helping us understand how the government works. How does the government think? And this is something that we historically would not have been able to do without a partner like DHS. So it really helped us move the needle. We also work with them on Protobomb. So Protobomb, as mentioned before, thank you very much for that fantastic description. So we've also worked with a great cohort of companies, and we've been able to help build out this Protobomb that allows us to convert from one SBOM to another. Also some new capabilities coming through as well, so that you can consume them in one particular way. That you're able to have one component that you use in order to absorb all of your SBOMs. So again, it's a whole community that comes together, and come talk to us upstairs. We're booth number 18, and trust is good, verification is better. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frederick. I'm going to turn it over to our panelists for their questions, but before I do that, I wanted to basically also ensure that I introduce Anthony, who is with DHS S&T. He's one of our subject matter experts in supply chain security, as well as a whole bunch of cybersecurity arenas as well. Thank you for being here. And gentlemen, over to you.
Love the idea of attestations. Let's talk a little bit about what tooling a developer needs to have on hand to take advantage of this. Is this something that can be used just across the software lifecycle, or do I need to have the latest and greatest pipeline before I can take advantage of attestations?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. So when you look at in the open source space, you're not going to have a single pipeline, and they're going to have a different range of capabilities. So if you're working on Java, you're going to have things like Jenkins in there. If you're going to have things like Bamboo. If you're working in the Go space, you'll often see GitHub Actions will be in use. You'll often see things in GitLab with their runners as well. So a solution that works throughout the industry has to be one that is capable of respecting whatever environment it's running in and being able to integrate with such an environment. And this is especially true in the open source world as well. So I think that, well, in our particular scenario, we've designed our systems in such a way that we can integrate with any particular CI/CD environment, and we also have the generation of the attestations and the storage of those. Like, we've open sourced those components as well, so that also gives us really good synergy with the open source community. And we strongly believe that any solution that's going to work has to have an open set of standards and has to have an open source implementation of those particular standards. And if you do not have those two particular things, you're going to be limited in your impact. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
To that point, are those integrations pre-built, or does it assume that the customer have to build the integrations in, given the environment that they're operating? So
that depends on the environment. So in some environments, the solution will be turnkey. Not most environments are not. We are heading in that particular direction. So if you look at both GitHub and GitLab, those both are moving towards turnkey for generation of certain types of attestation. The most important one, and if you leave today thinking about which attestations you should have, the most important one you can have is that you have the binary. It goes through a CI/CD system that the developer has inputs to, but they don't control. It's controlled through a third party that is trusted, such as Microsoft with GitHub, or your DevSecOps team in your corporate environments. So the developer has limited capability to influence that other than the set of inputs. And the attestation that is most important in that scenario is, first, was it built on a system that meets our compliance? And then the second one is, did this artifact that we're building, where did the inputs come from? What is the source code, and what other things did it download in order to meet that? Because if you can identify that, you can look at the source code of that particular binary, and that gives you a starting place. And it's one of the problems they've had with groups like NPM and Python and Ruby and similar. And we're actually working with these communities in order to help with this. Is that very often you have your source code, you publish it on GitHub, and you're like, okay, take a look at my source code, it looks great. And then you go to the package, and if it's a malicious person, they then publish a malicious package that has nothing to do with the original source code. This has actually happened several times over, or even worse, it's mostly works, but then it has some malicious thing that's like gathering credentials, or it's running, it's stealing crypto wallets or similar. So being able to have that connection between this binary absolutely came from this source means that your auditors can go and can go look at that thing. Microphone's not working. Cool.
Okay, just to build on what he just said. So how much time are we looking at in terms of integration in another environment?
So time-wise, so right now we're still in early days, and so the time is definitely higher than we want it to be. With some of our particular groups, if it's a smaller project, the timelines can be a matter of minutes to hours. But for very complex environments, like say, hey, let's go in and test the software of a Navy ship or an Air Force or an Air Force aircraft. I would not expect those to be fast processes because you're dealing with lots of different groups. You're having to integrate across all these different areas. And this is back to why we mentioned about open source standards and open source implementation, is because in order to get to market there, in order to allow them to self-service the creation of those attestations, you really need to have some way to support that to support that environment. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frederick.
Thank you.